He held my hand through storms and laughter, made me believe in happily ever after, until I discovered the image he painted was just that, a facade. The betrayal didn't just sting. It obliterated every memory where I thought love existed. I told it was just coffee, just innocent conversation with Sarah from marketing. Just a harmless way to feel appreciated again after months of Emma treating me like furniture in our own home. God, I'm such a coward for even writing that. Emma wasn't treating me like furniture. Emma was working 60-hour-week support us while I sulked about my dead-end job and spent my evenings playing video games instead of talking to her. Emma was exhausted from carrying our relationship while I contributed nothing but complaints and excuses. But that Thursday morning, sitting across from Sarah in that coffee shop downtown, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Desired, interesting, alive. Or so much funnier than our at work. Sarah laughed, touching my arm. Emma's lucky to have someone who can make her laugh like this. I should have pulled away, should have talked about Emma with the love she deserved. Instead, I let Sarah's hand linger and said something that still makes me sick to remember. Sometimes I wonder if she even notices I'm there anymore. The betrayal didn't start with. It started with that sentence. With me painting Emma as a story where I was just a poor, misunderstood husband instead of a selfish who'd stopped putting effort into his own relationship. Sarah's eyes softened with sympathy. That must be so lonely. And there it was. The moment I chose to be unfaithful, even though nothing physical had happened yet. I was sitting there accepting comfort from another woman about problems I'd created, painting my girlfriend as cold and distant to justify the warmth I felt from someone else's attention. Who is lonely? I said, and meant it, because when stop communicating with partner, when stop trying, when retreat into and blame them for the distance created, it becomes lonely fast. Sarah suggested we grab lunch the next day, just to continue our conversation, just as friends. I said yes. Emma texted me that afternoon, movie tonight. I got off early and picked Thai food from that place, love. I almost canceled lunch with Sarah right then. Emma was trying. She was always trying. But instead of recognizing the effort, I saw it as too little, too late. I saw it as guilt instead of love. Sure. I texted back, then immediately felt guilty about lunch tomorrow, but not guilty enough to cancel it. That night, Emma curled next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder as we watched some rom-com she'd picked because she knew I secretly enjoyed them. Her hair smelled like the vanilla shampoo she'd used for 3 years. Her hand found mine in the dark. I know I've been working too much, she whispered during a quiet scene. I'm sorry if I've been distant. I just want to build something good for us. My heart should have broken right there. This woman, this incredible woman who'd stood by me through job losses and family drama and my depression spiral last winter, was apologizing for working hard to secure our future. She was taking responsibility for distance I had created. Instead, I squeezed her hand and said, I know, it's okay, but I didn't cancel lunch with Sarah. The next day, lunch became dinner. Dinner became drinks. Drinks became Sarah's apartment. I won't describe what happened there because it doesn't matter. The physical betrayal was just the inevitable conclusion to the emotional betrayal that had started the moment I decided Emma wasn't enough anymore. What I will say is this: the entire time, even as even as I made choices that would destroy everything good in my part of me, was thinking about Emma. About how she'd looked that morning, making coffee in my old college t-shirt. About how she'd my forehead and told me to have a good day. I thought about her and I did it anyway. When I got home that night, Emma was asleep. She'd left a plate of dinner in the microwave with a note. Day was good. Love, Pom. I stood in our kitchen, still tasting another woman on my lips, reading those 4 words that I no longer deserved. Love. I microwaved the dinner she'd saved me and ate it standing at the counter, hating but not enough to confess, not enough to stop. Because that's the thing about cheating that no one tells. It's not one moment of weakness. It's a series of choices, each one easier than the last, each one taking further from the person used to be. I was about to find out exactly how far that road goes, and how impossible it is to find way back. The guilt should have eaten me alive, but instead it made me cruel. I started fights with Emma over nothing. The way she loaded the dishwasher, her morning routine taking too long, the fact that she wanted to talk about her day when she got home from work. I was picking fights because angry Emma was easier to betray than loving Emma. If she was nagging me about leaving dishes in the sink, I could tell she deserved what was happening. If she was frustrated with me for being distant, I could pretend that justified my distance. The truth is simpler and more pathetic. I was picking fights because I hated, and it's easier to someone else. Sarah and I started meeting twice a week. Coffee on Tuesdays, dinner on Thursdays when Emma worked late, sometimes her apartment afterward. Sometimes just emotional intimacy that felt more devastating to my relationship than the physical betrayal. She doesn't appreciate, Sarah would say, and I'd nod like it was true instead of admitting that I'd stopped being appreciable months ago. Her so different when with her. Sarah observed after I'd shown her a photo of Emma and me from happier times. Looked diminished. I looked diminished because I was diminished, because cheating doesn't make bigger or stronger or more alive. It makes smaller. It makes a shadow of who were before decided that love wasn't enough. But I convinced Sarah was right. I convinced that Emma was the problem, not my betrayal of her. The worst part, Emma could tell something was wrong. She kept trying harder. She'd leave little notes in my lunch. She'd text me funny memes during her breaks at work. She bought tickets to see a band I'd mentioned liking months ago, even though she hated their music. Seemed different lately, she said one night as we got ready for bed. Is everything okay with us? I could have told her then. Could have ended the charade and given her the chance to decide if she wanted to for us or walk away with her dignity intact. Instead, I gassed her, made her feel crazy for noticing what her instincts were screaming at her. Everything's fine, I said, not meeting her eyes. Or just stressed from work. She accepted it because she loved me. Because she trusted me. Because the Emma I fell in love with 2 years ago assumed the best of people, especially the person she'd given her heart to. I was systematically destroying that trust, that assumption of goodness, and she didn't even know it yet. The end came on a Tuesday. I was at coffee with Sarah as had become our routine. We were talking about maybe going away for a weekend together, maybe something more serious between us. I think I'm falling for, Sarah said, and for a moment I felt that rush of validation that had started this whole nightmare. Then I looked and saw Emma standing in the coffee shop doorway. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was supposed to be at work for 3 more hours. But her meeting had been cancelled, and she thought she'd surprise me. Maybe grab lunch together since we'd been so disconnected lately. The look on her face when she saw us, saw Sarah's hand covering mine on the table, saw the way we were sitting close together like lovers, will haunt me until the day I. It wasn't anger first, it was confusion. Pure innocent confusion. Like she was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. Like she was looking at a picture where something was wrong but she couldn't quite identify what. Then understanding hit. I watched it happen in real time. Watched the light go out of her eyes. Watched her face change from confusion to devastation to something harder and colder than I'd ever seen from her. She didn't make a scene. Emma never made scenes. She just turned around and walked out. I should have followed her immediately. Should have left Sarah sitting there and chased after the woman I just destroyed. Instead I sat frozen for 30 seconds watching Emma disappear, while Sarah asked, "Who was that?" "My girlfriend," I whispered. By the time I got to the parking lot, Emma was gone. I drove home doing 90 on city streets, my hands shaking, my mind racing through every possible explanation I could give her. Every way I could minimize what she'd seen. She was waiting for me in our living room. Her work clothes still on. Her hands folded in her lap like she was in a job interview. "How long?" she asked without looking. I could have lied. Could have said it was nothing, just a friend, first time anything happened. But Emma deserved better than more lies, even if I hadn't given her better than betrayal. 6 weeks. I said. She nodded once, like she was filing away information. "Are in love with her?" The honest answer was no, I wasn't in love with Sarah. I was in love with the way Sarah made me feel about. Which isn't the same thing at all. But Emma was asking because she was trying to decide if this was a mistake or a choice. Trying to decide if I had fallen for someone else, or if I had just fallen. "I don't know," I said because I was still a coward. That's when she finally looked at me, really looked at me. "I know," she said quietly. "Don't love her. Don't even love, and sure as don't love me anymore." She was wrong about that last part, but I didn't know how to tell her. Didn't know how to explain that I'd betrayed her because I hated, not because I didn't love her. "Emma, don't," she held a hand. "Please don't say you're sorry. Please don't say it didn't mean anything. Please don't insult me any more than already have." She stood, smoothed down her skirt and walked toward our bedroom. "I'll stay at my sister's tonight. We can talk about logistics tomorrow." Logistics, like we were business partners dissolving a company, instead of people who had shared a bed and dreams in 2 years of together. I wanted to beg her to stay, for us. To scream at me or throw things or give me a chance to grovel. But Emma had always been classier than I deserved. Even in her devastation, she was handling this with more grace than I'd handled anything in months. She packed a bag while I stood in the hallway like an. She took only what she needed for a few days, leaving everything else behind like she couldn't bear to dismantle our together in one night. At the front door she stopped. "I really love," she said, not looking back. "I loved who I thought were." The past tense hit me like a physical. "Emma, please." But she was already gone, and I was alone in the apartment we'd made into a home, surrounded by evidence of a relationship I destroyed for nothing more than the temporary high of feeling wanted by someone new. I called Sarah that night and told her it was over. Whatever we'd had, whatever we'd been building, it was done. "But we're free now," she said, confused. "We can actually be together." That's when I realized how little she'd understood about what we were doing. She thought we were star-crossed lovers kept apart by circumstances. She didn't realize we were just two people who'd been willing to destroy something real for something. "I'm not free," I told her. "I'm just a lie was. More alone than I'd ever been in my." But I was about to learn that loneliness was just the beginning. Emma moved out on a Saturday while I was at work. She didn't take everything. Just her clothes, her books, the coffee maker she'd brought from her old apartment, and the framed photo of her grandmother that had sat on our dresser for 2 years. She left behind the throw pillows she'd picked out for our couch. The plants she'd nursed back to health in our living room. The mug I'd bought her that said, "World's okayest girlfriend." That she'd used every morning for coffee. She left behind everything that had made our apartment feel like home. But she took something more important with her. She took the version of that I'd been when I was with her. The version that remembered to text good morning. The version that planned surprise dates and remembered to buy flowers for no reason. The version that believed he was worthy of being loved. I came home to half-empty rooms and a note on the kitchen counter. "I've left my key. Please don't contact me for a while. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not loving someone who doesn't love me back. Take care of point, no anger. No recriminations. Just Emma being Emma even when I'd given her every reason to me." The first week was the worst. I kept reaching for my phone to text her about things. A funny billboard I'd seen on my commute. A song on the radio that reminded me of our second date. The fact that I'd finally fixed the leaky faucet she'd been asking me to look at for months. Then I'd remember that I didn't get to share those moments with her anymore. That I'd forfeited the right to be the person she thought of when something made her smile. I tried dating again after a month. Convinced I needed to move forward. That wallowing wasn't helping anyone. The first woman I met for coffee spent 20 minutes talking about her ex-boyfriend. The second one asked if I was looking for something serious. And I realized I didn't know how to answer that question anymore. How to explain that had something serious and destroyed it, that are not sure are capable of being trusted with someone's heart again. I stopped trying to date after that, started seeing a therapist instead. "What made cheat?" Dr. Rodriguez asked during our third session. I gave her all the surface answers first. Emma and I had been growing apart. We weren't communicating well. I felt unappreciated. But lots of people feel unappreciated in relationships. She pointed out. They don't all cheat. What made choose that? The real answer took me months to find. I cheated because I was depressed and hated. And instead of dealing with those feelings or asking for help, I decided to make Emma responsible for fixing them. When she couldn't read my mind and solve problems I hadn't told her about, I decided she was failing me. Cheating wasn't about Emma at all. It was about me being too cowardly to face my own. But understanding why didn't make it less. Didn't bring Emma back. Didn't undo the damage I'd done to the person I'd claimed to love most. I ran into her sister at the grocery store 4 months after Emma moved out. How is she? I asked, even though I didn't have the right to know. Jessica looked at me with disgust. She's seeing a therapist. Learning to trust people again. Really her know that? I did know that. I'd taken someone who approached love with open hands and taught her to keep them closed. Ash, is she dating anyone? That's none of business anymore, Jessica said. Made choice, led with it. She was right, but it didn't stop me from wondering. Didn't stop me from hoping Emma had found someone who deserved her. Someone who wouldn't take her love for granted and throw it away for a few moments of validation from a stranger. The holidays were brutal. Emma and I had planned to visit her family in Oregon for Christmas. Instead, I spent December 25th alone in our old apartment, eating Chinese takeout and watching Netflix. My mom called to ask why Emma wouldn't be joining us for dinner. I'd been putting off telling my family what happened. Partly out of shame, partly because saying it out loud made it more real. Broke, I said. Oh honey, I'm sorry. What happened? I could have lied, could have said we grew apart or wanted different things. My mom would have accepted that and moved on. Instead, I told her the truth. I cheated on her. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom, I'm here, she said finally. I'm just disappointed. I raised better than that. She had raised me better than that. The version of me she'd raised would have never looked at Emma's exhausted face after a long day and decided she wasn't enough. Would have never chosen the excitement of something new over the comfort of something real. But somewhere along the way, I decided that who I was raised to be wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. I decided that commitment was boring and loyalty was optional and love was something that should always feel easy. I'd forgotten that love is a choice make every day, not just a feeling that happens to. A year after Emma left, I finally started dating someone seriously again. Her name was Melissa, and she was kind and funny and everything I should have wanted. But every time she'd text me during the day, I'd think about how Emma used to do that. Every time she'd suggest watching a movie, I'd remember Emma falling asleep on my shoulder during the credits. Every time she'd say she loved me, I'd hear Emma's voice instead. I was comparing every woman I met to the one I'd lost, and none of them could measure. Not because they weren't good enough, but because I'd idealized Emma in my memory. Had turned her into the perfect woman I'd been to appreciate when I had her. Melissa figured it out after 3 months. Or not over X. She said over dinner at the restaurant where Emma and I had celebrated our 1-year anniversary. I started to deny it, but Melissa held her hand. I can tell. Get this look sometimes like her somewhere else. Like, or remembering something that makes sad she was right. I was remembering everything. I was mourning not just Emma, but the version of I'd been when I was worthy of her love. I'm sorry, I said. Deserve better than someone who still hung on someone else. I do, she agreed. And she deserved better than someone who would cheat on her. Melissa was kinder about the breakup than she needed to be. She hugged me goodbye and told me to get help, real help, before I tried to love someone else. Figure out why I destroyed something good, she said, because until do, are just gonna keep doing it. That night, I drove past Emma's new apartment. I'd found out where she lived through mutual friends, though I'd never been pathetic enough to actually go there before. Her lights were on. I could see her moving around in what looked like the kitchen, probably making dinner. She looked happy, peaceful, like she'd figured out how to fill the Emma-shaped hole I'd left in her. I sat in my car for an hour, watching her live a that didn't include me, and finally understood what I'd really lost. It wasn't just Emma. It was the future we'd planned together. The trips we'd wanted to take. The house we'd talked about buying. The kids we'd maybe have someday. It was the version of I'd been when I believed I was capable of making someone happy forever. I drove home and away every photo I still had of us. Every gift she'd given me. Every reminder of what I'd destroyed. But I couldn't throw away the memories. Couldn't forget the way she used to look at me like I was exactly what she'd been waiting for her whole. Couldn't forget that I'd been exactly what she was waiting for, until I decided I wanted to be something else instead. 2 years later, I heard through mutual friends that Emma got engaged to a guy named David who teaches high school math and coaches Little League on weekends, who proposed to her on the beach where they had their first date, who apparently looks at her the way I used to, before I forgot how lucky I was. I'm happy for her. I really am. She deserves someone who will choose her every day, not just when it's convenient. But there's a part of me that will always wonder what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to for us instead of running towards someone new. If I'd chosen therapy over betrayal. If I'd chosen love over ego. I know the answer though. We'd probably be married now, maybe have kids, maybe be planning that trip to Ireland we used to talk about. Instead, I'm 34 years old, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, explaining to every woman I meet why my longest relationship ended. I'm not the villain in some grand romance. I'm not even the tragic hero of my own story. I'm just a guy who had everything he ever wanted and it away because he thought he deserved more. The therapist says I'm making progress. That I'm learning to be honest with about my motivations and my fears. That someday I might be ready to love someone the way they deserve to be loved. But I wake every morning knowing that the best thing that ever happened to me walked out of my because I made a choice to betray her trust, and no amount of therapy or time or personal growth will ever change the fact that when love was tested I failed. Emma held my hand through storms and laughter, made me believe in happily ever after, until I discovered the image I painted of was just facade. The betrayal didn't just sting. It obliterated every memory where I thought I was worthy of being loved.